근데 그림 그리면서부터 식물을 좀 이렇게 그려보면 이파리 모양을 그리고 났더니 다음에 그 식물을 만났을 때 걔가 내가 그려보내면 기억을 할 수 있어요. 그래서 외우게 된 이파리가 몇 개 있더라고요. 그래서 식물이 조금 관심이 생겼고, 나무도 이제 그리다 보면 수종에 따라서 생긴 게 다 다르거든요. 특히 이제 이파리 모양에 따라서 나무 전체의 모양이 되게 달라져요. 예를 들면 화렵수 같은 경우는 이제 이파리가 동그랗고 넓으니까 그 넓은 것들이 이렇게 모여 있는 모양 자체도 이렇게 약간 동그란 느낌이 있고요. 침엽수는 다 이렇게 뾰족뾰족하잖아요. 뾰족뾰족한 것들을 이파리를 가까이도 가서 보고 멀리서도 와서 이렇게 보고 그리면 그거 자체에 이렇게 모양이 다 다르구나, 이런 것들을 알게 되면서 사실은 관심을 가지게 된 것 같아요. 나무 색깔은 사실은 되게 여러 가지 색깔이 있는데, 이게 어둡고 밝고의 문제가 아니라 새로 난 이파리, 그리고 조금 오래된 이파리, 조금 말라가는 이파리마다 색깔이 조금씩 달라요. 그래서 보면은 스프링 그린이나 메이 그린 같은 이런 연두색 계열의 것들은 이제 해를 받거나 아니면 새로 난 이파리들의 이렇게 그림을 그렸고요. 햇빛에서 가려져서 어두운 쪽에 색깔이라던가 아니면 조금 이제 갈색으로 넘어가는 종류의 그런 이파리들은 제가 쓰는 걸로는 말라카이트 그린이나 다크색 그린을 되게 좋아하거든요. 그래서 이런 것들은 이 색이 가지고 있는 어두운 색깔인데 이거 자체로 되게 매력 있는 색깔이라고 생각합니다. 사실 자연이 담고 있는 색깔이 너무 다양한 거죠. 같은 초록색이라고 해도 약간 따뜻한 종류의 초록색과 약간 차가운 종류의 초록색이 있어요. 그래서 그런 것들이 사실은 색연필에는 대부분 다 표현이 되어 있기 때문에 자연의 색깔들을 다 담으려고 하다 보니 이렇게 많은 색깔들이 필요해지네요. 근데 특히 초록색은 그때마다 초록색의 범위를 이렇게 다양하게 해서 쓰게 되는 것 같아요. 봄에 나온 이파리, 새로 나온 이파리들의 색깔들이 이렇게 반짝반짝 빛나는 게 있어서 이렇게 다양하게 색깔로 표현하니까 되게 좋으네요. 정원이 있어서 이런저런 꽃이 되게 많아요. 다양한 꽃이 있는데 양귀비 꽃을 한번 그려볼게요. 이 색깔은 아니고 색연필이 딱히 이 색깔이 없네요. 마커를 한번 써보는 것도 좋을 것 같아요. 꽃잎도 약간 반짝반짝 빛나고 있어서 빛나고 있는 부분은 약간 흰색으로 좀 처리를 해볼게요. 자, 빨간색 꽃 다 그렸으니 이제 보라색 꽃 찾으러 한번 가볼까요? 이게 한 덩어리로 보이는데 안에 꽃이 엄청 많아요. 한 30개 되는 것 같아. 안쪽은 또 조금 분홍색이에요. 그래서 분홍색으로. 노란색을 한번 그려볼까요? 노란색이 여기 어울릴 것 같아요. 이렇게 강렬한 색깔들, 비비드 색깔이라고 하잖아요. 이런 색깔들 오늘 되게 다양하게 봤거든요. 되게 여러 가지 색깔들을 색연필이랑 같이 노는 시간이었어서 너무 즐거웠습니다. 조성된 정원이 10월 초까지 계속 운영이 된다고 하니까 그때까지 아마 꽃이 뭐 졌다 폈다, 다른 꽃이 졌다 폈다 하게 될 것 같아요. 하지만 이 초록색의 다양함과 꽃들의 색깔들의 다양한 것들을 그냥 산책 나와서 보셔도 좋겠지만 색연필 한번 가지고 나오셔서 그 색연필에 맞는 꽃들 한번 찾아보시면서 그려보시는 것도 너무 좋을 것 같습니다.
안녕하세요. KLN 웹 콘텐츠 북포유 당신을 위한 책의 처방을 맡은 정지혜입니다.
여러분들에게 통쾌하고 또 뭉클한 책 처방을 해드린 시인 유희경입니다. 저희가 본격적인 시작에 앞서서 북4유 당신을 위한 책 처방 이 프로그램이 어떤 목적을 가지고 있는지 간단하게 소개를 좀 해드려야 될 것 같아요.
해외 독자분들의 경우에 한국 문학에 관심이 있어도 내가 이걸 어떻게 접할 수 있을지 좀 제대로 된 기회가 없잖아요. K에대를 통해서 좀 책을 추천해줬으면 좋겠다라는 요청이 종종 들어온다고 해요. 그래서 저와 유희경 시인님이 이 시간을 통해서 다양한 한국 문학들을 해외 독자분들에게 추천해드리는 시간을 가져보려고 합니다.
안녕하세요. 저는 2010년부터 한국에 자주 왔다 갔다 하며 살고 있는 미국인입니다. 저는 아직도 제가 한국에서 오랫동안 살 수 있을지 확신이 들지 않습니다. 저는 인종과 국적 또는 이질성과 관련된 이야기에 관심이 많습니다. 이와 관련된 소설을 읽는 것이 제가 한국에 오래 머물지 결정하는 데 도움이 될 수 있다고 믿습니다. 인종과 국적, 이질성과 관련된 한국문학 작품을 추천해 주실 수 있을까요? 먼저 소설부터 이야기를 해볼까요?
네, 제가 그 테일러님 사연을 받고 나서 제일 먼저 떠오른 소설가가 한 명 있었어요.
그게 누군가요?
조혜진 소설가인데요. 그 조혜진 작가가 등단하고 나서 처음에 이제 일이 많이 없었을 때 한국어 강사로 일을 하시다가 폴란드에 가서 지냈던 경험이 있으신데 그때 내가 완벽한 이방인이고 또 소수자라는 느낌을 많이 경험하셨다고 해요. 그래서 이제 조혜진 작가님의 소설에는 유학생이나 이민자나 입양아 같은 이런 이방인들이 자주 등장하는데요. 제가 오늘 테일러님을 위해서 골라온 처방책 바로 이 빛의 호의라는 소설도 바로 그런 이방인들이 등장하는 소설입니다. 저는 테일러님의 사연을 읽으면서 눈에 띄었던 게 확신이라는 단어가 눈에 많이 들어오더라고요. 내가 확신을 가지지 못했다라고 말씀을 하셨는데 제가 이 빛의 호의에 나오는 단편집 중에 시간의 거절이라는 단편이 있어요. 거기에서 테일러님에게 딱 처방해드리고 싶은 구절을 발견을 해서 오늘 소개해드리려고 하는데요. 제가 읽어드릴게요. 몸 안에서 영원히 머무는 것은 없다. 음식도 감각과 감정도 한때는 존재 전체를 걸고 싸웠던 고민과 그 고민의 시간까지. 흘러간 것은 절대로 되돌아오지 않는다는 그 정직함이 생의 유일무이한 위로라고 석희는 생각해왔다. 라는 구절을 테일러님에게 처방해드리고 싶었는데 그 이유가 뭐냐면 저희가 되게 치열하게 하고 있는 고민이라든지 그때 나를 둘러싼 상황이나 아니면 내가 되게 굳게 믿고 있는 신념들도 사실 시간이 지나가다 보면 자연스럽게 흘러가고 변하는 것들이 되게 많잖아요. 이 소설의 맨 마지막 문장이 이렇게 끝나요. 생은 그곳에도 있을 터였다 라고 끝나거든요. 그래서 생은 어디에나 있으니까 미국에도 있고 한국에도 있으니까 어떤 선택이든지 간에 테일러님의 마음이 흘러가시는 대로 좀 두어보시기를 권해드리면서 테일러님을 응원해드리겠습니다. 시인님은 어떤 시를 준비하셨어요?
어떤 시를 골라들어야 테일러 씨한테 위로가 될까 생각을 하다가 좀 다소 엉뚱한 이름을 소환해 왔어요. 사이토 마리코라는 시인입니다. 사이토 마리코 씨는 1960년 일본 니카타현에서 태어났어요. 대학생 시절에 한국어 문학을 접하고 특히 윤동주 씨에 빠져가지고 한국어를 유학을 가야겠다고 생각을 하고 1991년에 유학을
되게 어떻게 보면 되게 이른 시기네요. 네네.
제가 이 중에서 광합성이라는 시의 일부를 읽어드릴 거예요. 이 부분이 테일러 씨에게 뭔가 울림을 드릴 수 있지 않을까라는 기대를 갖고 있습니다. 한번 읽어볼게요. 나무를 일본말로 키라고 하며 한국말로는 나무라고 한다. 10년 전에 처음 한국말을 배웠을 때 나무란 낱말이 나의 가슴 속으로 뿌리를 내렸다. 한국에 온 지 2달 동안 줄곧 아래만 보면서 돌아다녔는데 6월이 되고 처음으로 눈을 들어봤더니 그들이 잎사귀를 살랑거리며 서 있었다. 그들을 나무라고 부르면 내 속에서 나무가 담례했다. 10년 공들여 간신히 푸르게 자란 잎사귀들이 눈부시게 펄럭이면서 저는 테일러 씨의 마음속에도 한국이라는 나라의 씨앗이 심겼다고 생각을 하고 그것이 점점 자라서 자신도 모르는 사이에 눈부신 잎사귀로 펄럭거리게 되고 그 그늘 아래 테일러 씨가 편히 쉴 수 있을 거라고 생각을 해요. 그래서 살토 마리코 씨의 어쩌면 테일러 씨의 선배이기도 한 이 번역가의 시를 여러분들에게 그리고 테일러 씨에게 소개해드렸습니다. 벌써 작별할 시간이 다가왔어요. 오늘 첫 시간이었는데 정재희 작가님 어떠셨습니까?
저도 되게 좋은 시를 하나 더 알게 된 것 같아서 되게 좋은 시간이었고요. 시인님은 어떠셨어요?
되게 중요한 위로를 드려야겠다는 책임감 같은 것들이 막 찾아오더라고요.
네, 그럼 저희 같이 인사드릴까요? 부포유.
당신을 위한 책. 다음 시간에 만나요.
안녕.
안녕.
Millennial and Gen Zs are reshaping the world. News generation shares their fresh perspectives on what's trending now. From global developments to everyday culture, we're diving into the stories that matter. This is News Generation. The Korean wave is drawing more fans from all over the world. Local consumer prices continue to hover at the 2% success rate in April.
Turning to robots to allow the visually impaired the chance to better indulge in cultural experiences. Like the number of hybrid cars are registered in South Korea has surpassed 2 million using its locally developed Yuri rocket.
Arirang.
Global heritage will unite. We share brilliant values and honor the world's most cherished legacies to pass our heritage on to future generations. Busan invites you, the 48th session of UNESCO World Heritage Committee, July 2026, Busan, Korea.
Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. President Lee Jae-myung headed to Japan to meet with his Japanese counterpart, PM Takaichi, this afternoon. They're expected to discuss ways to strengthen cooperation in areas including intellectual property protection and artificial intelligence, with attention also on whether historical issues will be raised. Commuters faced disruption in Seoul this morning due to a bus strike. This comes after Seoul City Bus Union and management were unable to reach an agreement on a wage increase, despite hours of negotiations that continued late into the night. As the death toll from protests in Iran continues to rise, U.S. President Donald Trump says Iran is seeking to negotiate with Washington. The White House says that although diplomacy is always the first option, attacking Iran with airstrikes is also on the table. We begin this morning with President Lee Jae-myung's trip to Japan, where he's set to hold talks with Japanese Prime Minister PM Takaichi this afternoon. South Korea's presidential jet carrying President Lee and First Lady Kim Hae-kyung took off from Seoul Air Base this morning. Lee is expected to speak to Takaichi on ways to boost bilateral cooperation in areas including intellectual property protection, artificial intelligence, people-to-people exchanges, and efforts to combat scam crimes. This will mark their second summit following their first talks in Gyeongju, ahead of the APEC leaders meeting last October. The summit will be followed by a joint press briefing and a dinner hosted by Prime Minister Takaichi. So the leaders of South Korea and Japan will meet this afternoon. Now, for more on what to expect from the meeting, we're joined today by Robert Kelly, Professor of International Relations at Busan National University. Professor Kelly, thanks for joining us this morning.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So a lot of attention is on whether historic issues like the Chose coal mine will be on the agenda in today's meeting. How might the Lee administration's approach to historical issues differ from that of the former Yoon administration?
Sure. I think most of the historical issues will probably not be brought up, except if there's something particularly salient to President Lee's coalition in South Korea, perhaps the comfort women, for example. That's a sort of well-known issue. But my sense is that both sides understand, and I think a lot of observers expect, that many of these issues have been gone over and over and over many times, and that bringing them back up is really not going to lead to very much. These issues have been debated between Korea now going on 35 years, and there's just not been a great deal of progress. And in an era where China's sort of behavior is becoming more difficult in the region, say regarding Taiwan, where the Americans are increasingly unreliable under Donald Trump. My own guess is that even if President Lee's coalition inside Korea would like these issues discussed, my sense is the strategic pressure will probably encourage the Koreans not to bring them up. And of course, the Japanese don't really want to talk about them at all. So my guess is the historical issues will be sidelined in the interest of some bland communique where, we're working on these things and we hope the historians can work it out. But I would be really surprised if there's any kind of meaningful discussions or big in-depth discussion of it, much less any kind of breakthrough. And as you said, in part, that's because of the way these things have been handled in the past by previous administrations. The Yoon government, I think, was, willing to kind of look the other way. But of course, the previous presidency, Moon Jae-in, right? Moon Jae-in, this became a huge issue, right? And the relationship really cratered for a while, and so my guess is that President Lee would like to avoid that.
I see. And what about security matters? How do you expect the talks to unfold on security issues?
Yeah, this is really tricky because the Chinese, of course, were just talking to President Lee last week and saying, don't get too close to the Americans and Japanese, right? I mean, that's sort of what the Chinese have been telling the South Koreans for years, right? That South Korea can avoid a sort of hegemonic clash between America and China if it kind of keeps quiet and kind of stays out of the way. And I think there's a certain amount of appeal to that, particularly in President Lee's coalition. There's kind of a desire to avoid getting swept up into this larger conflict between the Americans and the Chinese and Japanese, of course, be in the American camp. But on the other hand, right, I mean, the Americans are increasingly unreliable. And if the Americans under Donald Trump sort of pull out of East Asia, or if the Americans signal that, our word just isn't as reliable as it was before, that puts a lot of pressure on South Korea and Japan to cooperate because they live right next to China. They live right next to North Korea and Russia. Those three countries are all cooperating increasingly, right? We're very concerned that Russia, for example, is helping North Korea with missile technology. And so there are a lot of structural pressures on the Koreans and the Japanese to cooperate because they share a lot of values in democracy and liberalism and stuff like that, which very obviously China and the regional autocracies don't. And so I think this will probably push Korea and Japan, maybe against their will, maybe against the interests of some of their domestic coalitions, but I think it will push the two leaders towards some kind of joint statement about the importance of the status quo and not altering that with force.
And like you just mentioned, President Lee is in Japan just days after he returned from China. With tensions rising between Beijing and Tokyo, how should South Korea sort of balance relations with these two countries?
Well, the short-term answer, I think, is what you're kind of seeing from the Lee administration, which is that kind of keeping their head down, right? I think President Lee just said a couple days ago on Twitter or something like that, right, that South Korea has no permanent friends and enemies, has permanent interests, and we're sort of pursuing the national interest regardless of with whom we interact. And that'll work in the short term, particularly to keep the Chinese happy. But in the long term, I would argue that South Korea is actually threatened by a rise by autocratic China to dominance in the region. Japan really wants to block that. I would argue that's also in South Korea's interest. I realize that's an issue of debate inside South Korea, but I would argue that it's in South Korea's interest not to have a hegemonic China on its doorstep. And so ultimately that means that South Korea and Japan probably have to work together to block that outcome. And that's something I think the South Koreans are trying to dance around because South Korea exports a great deal to China. But the more the Chinese push on the region, particularly if they move on Taiwan, the harder it's going to be for South Korea to avoid this question, right? And I think that I would argue that this is probably the big grand strategy for South Korea in the next 2 decades, right? How is it going to respond to rising Chinese power? And I just don't know where South Korea will come down on that.
I see. And analysts say that today's summit could be a key moment for regional ties amid U.S.-China rivalry. What's your take on this, and how do you see trilateral cooperation between the United States, Japan, and South Korea developing throughout this year?
Yeah, the second question I think is a little bit easier. I think trilateral cooperation, which I would argue is a good thing, will be undermined by the unreliability of the United States as a partner. One thing that I've often felt as an American who works in East Asia is that East Asian elites, I think, miss just how disinterested Donald Trump is in alliances, just how, I would argue, even destructive Donald Trump is regarding U.S. alliances. I think you can really see that, for example, in Europe regarding NATO and the Ukraine conflict. And I am very concerned that Donald Trump will bring those attitudes towards East Asia, that he just is not willing to fight for Taiwan, that he just doesn't really care about the U.S. and South Korea alliance. He's just not going to put in the kind of effort that you saw Joe Biden make, for example. And so I think trilateral will probably, very little will come of it, in part because the Americans just won't bother. And that will leave it to the South Koreans and the Japanese to work on this issue together. And traditionally, it's been very hard without the United States around to broker it. The only upside, I suppose, the only thing pushing in the other direction is that the more China comes to dominate the entire regional security discussion in East Asia, the more Korea and Japan are going to face really powerful pressures to work together. And I think this I would argue, is the big issue for Korea in the next couple decades. China is big, it's getting bigger, it's on South Korea's doorstep, it's an autocracy, it looks like it has imperialist designs at the very least on Taiwan, right? We know China's misbehaving in the Yellow Sea. And so I think this is going to put a lot of pressure on South Korea eventually to kind of bury the hatchet with Japan and work together. It's going to take a while to get there, but I think that's where China is pushing the two of them.
I see. All right, Professor Kelly, thank you so much for your time and insight today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Those heading to work faced uncertainty this morning as city buses in Seoul went on an indefinite strike starting today. The disruption comes after talks between the Seoul City Bus Union and management over a wage increase ended without an agreement. Our Park Gun-woo has the latest.
Commuters in Seoul woke up to uncertainty on Tuesday morning after the Seoul City Bus Workers Union announced an indefinite strike beginning at 4 a.m. after wage negotiations broke down. That means the operation of around 7,000 buses in Seoul has ground to a halt. And that has caused widespread inconvenience for Seoul residents.
I waited for about 20 minutes without knowing about the strike. Another woman nearby said she waited 30 minutes. It's already past my work start time, and I'm very late because of the delay.
The strike comes after the union and management failed to reach a consensus after over 10 hours of marathon talks on a wage and collective bargaining agreement on Monday at the Seoul Regional Labor Relations Commission. The main point of contention is that management at Seoul City Bus wants to revise the current wage system by including bonuses into base pay, rather than recognizing them as part of ordinary wages to keep labor costs manageable, while offering a wage increase of over 10%. The bonus pay issue has been ongoing since 2024 after the Supreme Court ruled that bonuses should be included as part of ordinary wages. That was countered by the union asking that the bonus issue be excluded from the talks, while demanding a 3% raise and also calling for an extension of the retirement age to 65. Management said accepting the proposal could lead to an effective wage increase of around 20% if the bonuses are recognized as ordinary wages, arguing it was unacceptable. Mediators suggested resolving the bonus issue through legal channels and proposed an interim wage increase of 0.5%, which the union rejected.
We saw no sincere effort from either Seoul City or management. That left us no choice but to strike that we're unable to expect how long it will continue.
We're very frustrated that negotiations collapsed, despite our proposal that we believe exceeded the standards set by other local governments.
As the strike continues, Seoul City has rolled out emergency measures, including expanded subway services and free shuttle buses connecting subway stations. The city said it will make every effort to minimize inconvenience for residents, while also urging the union to consider the public and return to work as soon as possible. 박건우, Arirang News.
North Korea has called on South Korea to clarify an alleged drone intrusion into its airspace. Pundits here believe the drones that the regime claims came from South Korea were civilian crafts. Our defense correspondent Kim Bo-kyung reports.
Aside from the Defense Ministry's claims that South Korean drone infiltrations were not a military operation, experts say a civilian drone was likely involved after considering the pictures released by the North. The drone reportedly matches the Skywalker Titan 2160 model, commonly used by ordinary people that can be purchased through overseas platforms.
They used regular commercial parts, not military ones. The design is very vulnerable to jamming or other means of bringing drones down. It's not military equipment at all, just for civilian use. In fact, it's almost the same as models that anyone can easily order from Chinese online shopping sites.
Pyongyang claimed South Korean drone infiltrations were first made in September last year and then in January. Another expert says we need to note the timing of the regime having brought up the issue, right after the EC summit, to show that the regime is against China playing a role to ease the tensions, and just before the 9th Party Congress to strengthen internal unity.
Since South Korea is asking China to become a mediator, North Korea may be hinting that it does not want to respond or cooperate. Also, domestically, North Korea prefers tension between the two Koreas to support its view that they are hostile states, rather than trying to improve relations.
With the North Korean leader's sister Kim Yo-jong having warned that South Korean authorities must provide a clear explanation, the possibility of talks between the two Koreas is very unlikely, the expert added.
When a message like this is released through Kim Yo-jong, it's less about creating a positive turning point and more about neutralizing South Korea's peace efforts.
With Seoul's aim to come up with momentum to resume dialogue with Pyongyang before Trump visits China in April, eyes are on how the North will respond to the South's investigation results that will come out in the future. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, North Korea has stolen nearly $3 billion in cryptocurrency, making its cyber operations one of the most urgent security threats facing the United States and its allies. Senior U.S. State Department official Jonathan Fritz said Monday that the hacking campaign is now a top U.S. priority because it threatens American citizens, businesses, and national security. Fritz was speaking in New York ahead of a briefing by the multinational sanctions monitoring team, an 11-nation group created after Russia shut down the UN expert panel on North Korea sanctions in April 2024. According to the group's latest report, North Korea stole $2.84 billion in cryptocurrency between January 2024 and September 2025, including $1.65 billion in the first 9 months of 2025. U.S. officials say the money is being used to fund North Korea's weapons programs and bypass international sanctions. U.S. President Donald Trump says Iran is seeking talks after he threatened military action over Tehran's deadly crackdown on nationwide protests that activists say have killed hundreds. The White House says diplomacy remains the first option, but airstrikes are also on the table as tensions between Washington and Tehran continue to escalate. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
U.S. President Donald Trump says Iran is seeking negotiations with Washington after he warned of possible military strikes over Tehran's violent crackdown on nationwide protests that activists say have killed at least 599 people. Trump made the remarks as tensions between the two countries reached a new high following days of deadly unrest across Iran and growing international pressure on the government in Tehran. Iran has not directly responded to Trump's claim that it wants to negotiate. However, the comments came shortly after the foreign minister of Oman, a longtime mediator between Washington and Tehran, traveled to Iran over the weekend, fueling speculation that the back-channel talks may be underway. What Iran could realistically offer remains unclear. Trump has demanded strict limits on Iran's nuclear program and its ballistic missile arsenal, both of which Tehran says are essential to its national defense. In Washington, the Trump administration continued to warn that military action remains a possibility. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said Monday that diplomacy is always the first option, but that airstrikes are on the table.
Diplomacy is always the first option for the president. However, with that said, the president has shown he's unafraid to use military options if and when he deems necessary, and nobody knows that better than Iran.
Large-scale protests and riots have shaken Iran for days. Security forces have responded with a lethal crackdown that activists say has killed hundreds. Iranian authorities say dozens of security personnel have also been killed, though those figures are difficult to verify because of the nationwide internet blackout. Opposition groups insist the true death toll is higher and includes large numbers of protesters. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Chu Ji-hyun, and this is The World Now. The Trump administration has opened a criminal probe into Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell in an explosive clash between the White House and the United States Central Bank. Powell disclosed that the Justice Department on Sunday served the Federal Reserve with grand jury subpoenas last week, threatening criminal indictments over comments he made to Congress about cost overruns tied to a $2.5 billion renovation of the Fed's Washington headquarters. Powell pushed back publicly, calling the probe a pretext to strip the Fed of its independence and force rate cuts. The move drew swift condemnation from former Fed chairs, global central bankers, and senior Republicans, including Senate Banking Committee members, who warned the probe risks undermining the independence of the world's most influential central bank. Republican Senator Tom Tillis has already vowed to block any future Fed nominees until the administration resolves this legal assault. Financial markets reacted immediately. Long-term U.S. Treasury yields rose, gold hit a record high, and the dollar weakened as investors weighed the consequences of a politicized Federal Reserve. President Donald Trump will meet Venezuelan opposition leader and Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Corina Machado at the White House. The meeting set for Thursday comes weeks after U.S. forces seized President Nicolas Maduro in Caracas. Trump has so far declined to endorse Machado as Venezuela's new leader, despite her coalition claiming victory in the country's disputed 2024 election. Instead, the U.S. has said interim presidency Delcy Rodriguez has been cooperative with Washington. Machado says her movement should lead Venezuela, rejecting former Vice President Rodriguez as a key figure in past repression. Trump has sent mixed signals questioning Machado's domestic support and respect, but agreeing to meet her days after she offered to dedicate her Nobel Prize to him. A Swiss court on Monday ordered 3 months of pretrial detention for a bar manager following a deadly New Year's Eve nightclub fire that killed 40 people and injured 116 others. The court held the manager of the La Constellation bar in Crans, Montana, citing flight risk as prosecutors pursue charges including involuntary homicide and involuntary bodily harm. Investigators say decorative candles ignited ceiling soundproofing materials, while authorities found fire safety inspections had not been carried out since 2019. Swiss officials have launched a criminal investigation into the bar's owners, elevating a tragedy from an accident to a potential case of criminal liability. Toy maker Mattel released on Monday its first ever autistic Barbie to promote diversity and neurodivergent representation. Mattel developed the doll over more than 18 months with the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, designing features to reflect how some autistic people experience the world, including reduced eye contact, sensory tools, and noise-canceling headphones. The company says the doll aims to improve representation of neurodivergent children, noting autism affects 1 in 31 8-year-olds in the United States, according to the Centers for Disease Control.
Most of the snow and rain have now come to an end, but as the precipitation has frozen on the cold ground, many roads remain slick and icy. Please drive and walk with caution. We started off 5 to 10 degrees Celsius higher than yesterday in many parts, and highs will actually get colder as the day goes on, at least for the capital area. Along with biting winds, then we're waking up to another freezing morning tomorrow. Strong wind advisory remains in place for some of the west coast, the east coast, and Jeju Island. Then dry weather advisory also remains in place for most of the east coast regions, increasing the risk of wildfire, so fire safety is a must. This afternoon, Seoul gets up to -4 degrees Celsius. Daegu, Gyeongju both make it to 4 degrees under mostly sunny skies nationwide. Well, this intense cold snap will ease on Thursday with a chance of wintry mix on the same day. Take care, stay warm and safe.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.
Curious about Korea?
And especially K-food? How familiar are you with Korean food? The sea on 3 sides, a mountainous terrain, and 4 distinct seasons. Thanks to these conditions, Korean cuisine bursts with diverse and unique flavors.
Do you prefer sweet or spicy?
A meat lover or a seafood connoisseur?
Can't decide?
There's got to be something here that you like.
For Koreans, rice is foundational. It's a staple and the centerpiece to all meals in Korea. There's bibimbap, rice mixed with vegetables, gukbap, rice in hot soup, and kimbap is the demand around the world.
A For me, it's noodles over rice. Korea has amazing noodle dishes. Chuy ramen and cold naengmyeon to blow away the heat. A meat lover here, pork, beef, chicken, I like them all. Did you know that bulgogi is listed in the English dictionary? There's also the famous chimek, chicken and beer, which is the best combo for a night out with friends.
Surrounded by the sea on 3 sides, Korea has a great selection of seafood, from raw fish to piping hot seafood soups. It's mouth-watering just talking about it. The 2 pillars of Korean condiments, gochujang and soy sauce.
Ooh, what do you prefer?
Gochujang. I like anything made with gochujang. In general, Koreans love spicy food.
I prefer the soy sauce base. There's something about the salty and sweet that hits the right spot. I think even those who are trying Korean food for the first time will really like it.
But that's not all.
We can't leave out the street food. If you're in Korea, it's a must try. They are both treats for your eyes and mouth.
How about it? Mouth-watering, right?
Korean food, you've got to try it. Discover a whole new world of flavors.
We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Tuesday, January 13th here in Seoul. I'm Lee Soo-jin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Kyun.
Thanks for having me. By the way, Brooke, I love your Korean heart.
Thank you.
Very cute. And also we have Brooke with us.
Thank you for having me.
And both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So we're now into the second day of the week, and today we're talking about something that always sparks strong reactions online. So when a beloved celebrity reveals they're dating or announces a marriage, the response can be immediate and quite intense. So some fans celebrate, others feel disappointed, and sometimes the conversation turns surprisingly heated. So that brings us to today's question. So when a favorite star goes public with a relationship or marriage, how do you think the public opinion tends to shift?
This is a very tricky one. It's very sensitive as well, but I think it really depends on the person who gets married, whether they're an actor, a model, or an idol. Now, in terms of idols, they have a wide fan base, meaning that some of them have supported way before they debut and up until they become famous. So the feeling they have towards their favorite stars is a little different to, I guess, fans of models or actors. So when they find out that, I guess, they've secretly dated someone, especially another celebrity or another idol, I think the immediate kind of response could be like closer to a shock, disappointment, or even betrayal. Now, although the initial reaction should be congratulating them, saying, oh, you know, it's great to hear that, I'm so happy for you, it is kind of understandable how different types of public opinions can arise, considering how devoted these fans they are to their celebrities way before they debuted.
You can kind of understand both sides of this, so do you have anything to add to this, bro?
Well, coming from an American perspective, I was kind of surprised when I first discovered that there is this sort of unspoken rule against dating amongst Korean celebrities, because for us, it's a part of the fun. People in America love speculating about the love lives of celebrities. There are even whole tabloids dedicated to, you know, going into the dating scandals of the rich and the famous, and it actually kind of makes you more popular. Not to say it doesn't bring hate as well. I think Taylor Swift is a great example of that, where she does get some flack for her dating history, but she also has tons of fans that love dissecting her lyrics and figuring out which relationship she might be referencing. They feel like it's authentic because she's had those experiences. But in Korea, something like that could never happen. Idols sing about love and romance, but they're expected to not actually have had those experiences. And if they do, they could risk losing their entire careers for it, which might sound extreme to some, but to others, they say, well, if idols have the right and the freedom to date, then we have the right to stop being their fans if we, you know, feel that our feelings have changed because of that. And while, you know, you might not agree with someone's perception changing because of a celebrity dating or not, at the end of the day, it is their choice to be their fan or not. It is a very hotly contested and debated topic for sure.
That's why we probably have a lot to say on this topic. But first, let's take a look at the screen. For many fans, celebrities are more than just public figures. They're idols, sources of inspiration, and emotional investments, with fans dedicating significant time, energy, and money to support them. This kind of fan culture is especially strong in the world of K-pop. But when idols are revealed to be in a romantic relationship, that devotion can quickly turn into discontent and heated debate. Today on News Generation, we take a closer look at a recent dating rumor involving two top K-pop idols that captured widespread attention, why some fans strongly oppose idol relationships, and why in some cases relationships are not only accepted, but even welcomed. So as we just saw in a video, a recent dating rumor involving top idols sparked intense reactions within the fandom. From celebration to outright backlash, the response itself became a major talking point. So let's start there, Kyun. How did fans react to this latest rumor about two very famous K-pop idols?
The reactions were quite heated, to say the least. When fans of BTS Jungkook and aespa's Winter found out about rumors of the two dating, dissatisfied fans organized truck protest, a uniquely Korean form of fandom demonstration. Digital banners on each truck displayed messages like erase the tattoo, show responsibility. You broke our trust, stop deceiving the fans. Now, speculations about the two idols began circulating on online communities and social media in early December last year, driven by what fans claim are overlapping clues that those two were secretly dating. And the most widely discussed allegation involves matching tattoos on their arms, 3 small dog faces on each of their arms, which some users insist are identical. However, neither SM Entertainment, where aespa is in, and nor Hype has issued a statement confirming or even denying the rumor, including both artists, which has only intensified speculation among the fans.
So like you said, this wasn't just online chatter. It escalated into an organized backlash, even offline protests. And what's striking is how familiar this pattern feels. So this isn't the first time idol dating has caused controversy. So Brooke, can you tell us about similar situations that have happened in the past?
Sure. This is definitely not the first time we've seen controversies like this in the K-pop industry. In fact, from the same group, Karina from aespa also had to post a public apology acknowledging a dating rumor in the past, and BTS's Jimin had to address dating rumors as well. I'm a big fan of aespa and a big fan of BTS, so I do feel a lot of sympathy for these idols having to, go through this and navigate this situation. And to me, the idea of having to apologize for having a very normal, natural experience when you are a young 20-something is kind of hard to wrap my head around. But at the same time, that is the culture here, and it's been that way for a long time. And there are countries where it's actually even more strict. For example, in Japan, they have no dating clauses built into the contracts of their entertainers. And while Korea doesn't go that far, there still is that unspoken rule we've been talking about that essentially functions as a dating ban. Everyone knows what the consequences might be if some of these rumors come up, and it's a lot of pressure to be under. So I do honestly hope that one day there can be a little bit of wiggle room here with this very sensitive topic, because celebrities are still human beings at the end of the day, and this is a very human experience that they should get to have, I think.
So that really shows how complicated the issue is. There might not be an official dating ban per se in Korea, but the expectations are clearly still there. So Kyun, that brings us to the bigger question. So why do some fans feel so strongly about their favorite idols dating?
So fans have always had this strong feeling towards their idols dating long time ago from the past. And although it seems cruel to demand idols to stay single and give up on love at such a young age, the profession itself is built on quasi-romantic emotions with the fans for a couple of reasons. Now first, unlike entertainers in other fields such as actors or models, an idol's success depends heavily on the passion, time and financial investment of their fandom. Fans spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars to buy their albums, to attend fan sign events, coordinate mass streaming campaigns for new releases, promote artists, purchase merchandise and concert tickets, pay for subscription-based communication platforms, and even fund birthday advertisements or support projects. Now that's a lot, that's a long list. And because of this time, all this time and effort and money put in, it naturally forms a kind of like an intimate and affection towards the artist when this relationship is shaken by like a unilateral breakup. It may feel like a unilateral breakup and a sense of betrayal, like I said before. And also at a time when K-pop has been the most influential factor of the image of South Korea by foreigners for 8 consecutive years, reflecting its immense global influence, we must also consider whether it's right to simply condemn fan devotion. While some reactions are undoubtedly excessive, and I do agree with that point, the psychological background behind them also deserves understanding on the other end.
I think you made a good point, because I feel like as a culture itself, like K-pop fandom culture as a whole tend to be very dedicated, and fans tend to spend money in so many different areas. And you also see that with, you mentioned Taylor Swift earlier. Like obviously her fans spend a lot of money too, which is why they tend to make comments on it as well. So it's not simply about controlling idols' private lives, but about the emotional and financial investment that fans pour into them, and the sense of betrayal when that imagined relationship is disrupted. So Brooke, do you know of any other reasons why fans might feel so strong strongly.
Right. I would agree that I think we should exercise compassion and understanding when we're discussing this very nuanced topic. And we shouldn't just dismiss anyone's feelings or demonize them for those emotions. I think we should look into why they might be upset. So some people argue that it's not really the dating part itself that bothers them. It's the attitude and the way that the celebrity handles the situation. So for example, if they are purposefully trying to send these little signals or hints, if it seems like they're enjoying the act of secrecy or deception, fans might feel a little disappointed by that. Or if the dating interferes with their professionalism in any way, they might feel discouraged after devoting so much time to that artist. So there's also the opinion too that idols are willingly going into this career. They're making a lot of money, they're in the spotlight, and they know what they're signing up for, essentially. They understand the culture, they know that that expectation is there. So some fans believe that they should, maintain those expectations since they knew that going in. Now, as much as we are exploring those feelings and giving some validity to them, I think there becomes a serious problem when those feelings of disappointment turn into harassment and malicious comments and attacks towards either party. We can always understand being disappointed. I think it's perfectly, you're okay, you're within your rights to stop being someone's fan for whatever reason you choose, but no one should take it to that level.
Right, so that distinction is important, separating disappointment from outright harassment. So it suggests that while fans may struggle with idol dating, most would agree that drawing the line at abuse or online attacks is reasonable. So we ran a poll on the Arirang News YouTube channel where we asked, what is your opinion on idols being in relationships? So here's what the results showed. So 78% said they are okay with idols dating, while just 7% said they are against it. The remaining 15% say they feel neutral, suggesting that while dating remains a sensitive topic, public opinion is largely more accepting than in the past. So it's interesting to see that acceptance now outweighs resistance by such a wide margin, pointing to changing expectations within fandom culture. So despite the loud reactions we often see online, the data tells a quieter story, one of growing acceptance. And to better understand the K-pop fandom culture, we'll be speaking to a music critic, and that conversation will take place right after the break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search out channel Arirang News. Click Posts and cast your vote in the poll. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us today is Chung Min-jae, a music critic and writer and a member of the selection committee for the Korean Music Awards. So hello, thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. So how do dating standards and expectations for Korean idols compare to those overseas, and what makes the situation here in Korea so much more stricter?
There's a massive gap between how we view dating for Korean idols versus Western pop stars. In Korea, dating is still largely treated as a taboo, especially for rookies or groups in their peak years. Compare that to the West, where dating isn't just accepted, it's often a selling point. Artists like Taylor Swift, Olivia Rodrigo, Sabrina Carpenter actually use their personal lives to fuel their storytelling and connect with fans. But in Korea, it's a different story because idols are built on a very specific fantasy. The word idol is literal here. They're expected to be these perfect figures who are solely devoted to their music and their fans. It creates this parasocial bond where fans feel a sense of quasi-romantic relationship. So when dating news out, it feels like a betrayal of that fantasy.
Thank you, Min-jae. My next question is, from first-generation idols to today's K-pop stars, how have public and fan reactions to idol dating changed over time?
I'd like to say the general public's perception has shifted quite a bit. Back in the first generation, like HOT or GOD, dating news was a massive career-threatening scandal. But nowadays, the average person on the street is much more like, well, they're also human being, of course, they're dating. However, the core fandom hasn't changed that much. If a group is actively performing, fans still react very sensitively. there's something like fear that dating creates unnecessary new noise that might hurt the group's image or success. The only real shift is with senior established idols. Like if an artist has been in the industry for over decades and is in their 30s, fans are way more likely to give them their blessing. Since idol careers are much longer now, we're seeing a bit more flexibility, but the pressure is still very much there for younger stars.
Well, thank you so much for your insights today. I have one more question for you. When dating like this leads to public apologies, what does that say about the industry as a whole? And do you think any changes need to be made?
In general, dating isn't something anyone should have to apologize for, right? But in this industry, idols end up saying sorry because they feel they've broken the fans' dream or caused the distraction for their team. It's almost like how parents feel about a kid in their senior year of high school. Like they're thinking, you should be focused on your exams. Why are you distracted by your relationship? So we really need to move past this and start seeing idols as human beings first and artists second. I know it won't happen overnight because the entire business model is built on these intense relationships. But eventually, we need to reach a point where dating is seen as a natural part of life. And that's the big question for producers and industry leaders. Maybe the focus needs to shift toward the music, the performance, and the touring, making it more about the artistic output and less about the imaginary partner vibe. That's how global pop stars operate, and for the industry to stay healthy long term, K-pop might need to head in that same direction, I think.
All right, I think that was a great analysis on the current phenomenon. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Minja.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we've just heard from our music critic on why dating standards for Korean idols tend to be stricter than overseas, how fan reactions to idol relationships have evolved from first-generation K-pop idols to today, and what it means when dating still leads to public apologies and potential industry change. But not every idol relationship, as Minjae said, is met with backlash. So Kyun, there have been also cases where dating was actually welcomed by fans. So what's the difference between that?
So just to talk about one example, when idols such as Choi Changmin from Dongbangsingi and Ok Taekyung from 2PM officially announced that they were dating, fans were actually happy and they welcomed the happy news and actually supported their love. But this was only possible because they spent many years fully committed to their fans without any big scandals, even past their peak as well. So this meant them maintain a healthy public relationship with their fans while separately being devoted to their romantic partners privately. So when they took the next step of tying the knot, fans, cheered and promised their continued support for their stars, and in turn, they too thanked the fans for showing respect and vowed to keep performing at the highest level for the fans despite their marital status. So I think this was a very healthy relationship that many, I guess, younger idols, second, third, fourth generation idols should look up to from these first generation idols, because this is what we want. We want both sides to be happy, not criticizing each other and losing trust and saying, you know what, I'm going to turn away from you and start, leaving hate comments, because at the end of the day, like what Minja said, they're just human beings and we should treat them as human beings before artists or before idols or before this imaginary fantasy relationship.
And another big thing also was I feel like fans felt less blindsided in those cases as well, which is big. So in those cases, fans weren't just rejecting the relationship itself, they were responding to what they felt was mutual respect and clear boundaries between public and private life. So Brooke, taking everything we've discussed today into account, what stood out to you the most from this conversation?
Well, I think what you just said, boundaries, I think that is the key word that everyone should take from this conversation today. And listen, I'm a huge K-pop fan. It's why I'm on the show today. I know what it's like to be attached to an artist, to devote your time and your energy and passion into supporting them. I totally get it, and I don't think we should ever demonize passion for something that you love and support. However, there has to be a line, right? We have to make sure that we're not interfering with someone's basic human rights to have the experiences that every person should get to have. But at the same time, as we've been talking about, celebrities can find a way to handle the situation delicately and transparently so that, like we said, fans don't feel blindsided or hurt by it. And then you get those amazing, beautiful examples of mutual respect and understanding. That's what I hope to see, more compromise moving forward. As our guest said, it probably won't happen overnight, but I think taking slow, small steps and having open discussions like we're having right now are a great start.
And I think what you said really captures the complexity of the issue. The line between reasonable expectations isn't clearly yet set yet. So Kyun, how do you see, this is a big question, fandom culture evolving from here?
So I think Korean fandom culture is unique. There are ups and downs, and we need to respect it. But for downs, we need to obviously work on it, to improve on it so that it doesn't affect the artists and the fans to a point where it becomes really personal and it affects them emotionally and affecting their lives in general. So I think it's interesting to also note that when a trainee signs a contract with an entertainment company, they mutually agree to the no dating policy. Even though it's not legally bound, they know, oh, okay, when I become a lot more famous than now, I will not date anyone, I'll keep it low-key. So, and the reason is idols know that they need the investment of their fans for them to grow, to become big. And it's their duty in turn to serve back by staying devoted to their fans. Now, when this cracks, it's only natural for fans to turn away and express their disappointment, which is totally fine. But at the end of the day, we don't want all idols to go through scandals. But when they do, they should be protected just like any other human being before it reaches the stage where they can't go back to the public and in the end make irreversible choices like ending their lives.
So idols are public figures, but they are also individuals with private lives. At the same time, fans aren't just spectators, they are active supporters. So as expectations evolve, the challenge is finding a healthier balance, one that respects the humanity of idols while also recognizing the time fans invest. So both sides have a role to play here, fans in embracing change and idols in navigating their personal lives with appreciation for the support that made their success possible. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation. But News Generation will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time with more stories and discussions. And a big thanks to Kyun.
Thanks for having me again.
And also Brooke.
Always a pleasure.
And to our viewers, thank you so much for joining us today. And we hope you have the best day. We are News Generation.
A country where traditional and modern cultures coexist.
Where you can explore spectacular landscapes and nature.
Savor the delights of traveling at every turn.
Where? Korea, of course.
There are some must-visit places in Korea. Ones that appear in every tour guidebook: Hangang River, Gyeongbokgung Palace from the Joseon Dynasty, and
Yes, yes, these are essentials, but I want to go somewhere a little different. I don't have to follow the guidebook. For example, filming locations for K-pop music videos or K-dramas and movies.
Traveling is all about taking it slow. A long walk at your own pace or even zoning out somewhere quiet. Doesn't it sound relaxing?
You travel for the experience, trying something new in a foreign place, de-stressing and making lifetime memories, taking tons of pictures along the way.
70% of the Korean territory is mountainous. Naturally, hiking is a very popular pastime in Korea. Not your kind of activity? Trust me, the view will make the effort worth it. Just catch your breath by the cold stream in the valley.
Korea is surrounded by the sea on three sides. From the beach, you can enjoy a wide open view as well as various water activities. But the riverside is great too. There's plenty to see and